Kia ora, good evening. Southland District Council is still to decide in principle whether to support a proposed toll road linking the Hollyford Valley in Fiordland to Haast on the west coast, saying more information is needed. One of the concerns is the cost of the project, and Council wants more information from the company putting forward the proposal, with Mayor Frana Cardno saying concerns need to be addressed.
We're going to ask the same questions that we have asked already. We want to know about the financial implications, how much it was going to cost, the environmental impact, whether they had all the permission for the paper roads and all of this. And I guess one of our biggest concerns is that 50% of this is in our district, and we need to know if all the financial implications are covered.
So what are your concerns around those financial implications?
Well, we want to know, how much it's going to cost really. In reality, does it all add up? Because if it falls belly up, who picks it up? And also we ask the questions how it may connect with other transport options, which would take the people from that road away from our district. So there are questions that we have asked. Westland Council's asking the same questions virtually, and we need them to be answered.
So will Council be looking at making a financial contribution to this?
No, we struggle with our roading and our huge roading as it is, and certainly we've got no money. It has to stand up on its own merits.
Do you have any other concerns around the road aside from finances?
Well, we just want to know the facts. What we saw was, it was pretty, but, we need to know the facts, and we need to know that this is a sustainable option, that it will pay for himself. We had a quote which was very high from an independent source. So, we need to know these things and how it's all going to be paid for, because 50% is in our district.
Are there environmental concerns as well?
Well, we want to know about the environmental impact. We want to know about the effects on Southland. A lot of people say good, others are negative. So we want to know the effects as a nation, nationally. And all of these studies, if you're going to do a project that's worth this type of money, you need to do it.
Now, do you think this is a controversial issue?
Yes, it is a controversial issue, and a lot of people are passionate about it, and we can understand that passion. It's been around a long time, but we also have a responsibility to the financial side of this for our future generations.
Drought and lamb prices have taken a toll on farmer confidence, with half of New Zealand's sheep and beef farmers worried about their ongoing business viability. That's according to the latest quarterly Rabobank Rural Confidence Survey, which found while overall farmer confidence has shown improvement from last year, 50% of sheep and beef farmers consider their business just viable or unviable. Overall, 28% of the country's farmers expect the agricultural economy to improve in the next 12 months, up from 18% last quarter, largely driven by a lift in dairy farmer confidence. The survey showed 25% of sheep and beef farmers expect to reduce investment in their business over the next year, while 55% of dairy farmers expect an improvement in their own performance. Stolen puppies, an abandoned dog and overcapacity are among the challenges facing staff at the Southland SPCA shelter this week. 2 puppies were stolen from the shelter last night, a 10-week-old Staffy Collie Cross and a 3-month-old White Labrador. Both already had homes lined up. Southland SPCA Chair Rachel Huckabridge says the SPCA is considering security cameras. Meanwhile, on Tuesday morning, a 10-month-old German Shepherd was dumped at the shelter, having been left tied to the gates, a concern as staff didn't know it was there. The shelter is currently at capacity, and staff are asking people to hold off bringing in animals if possible and to look at rehoming them themselves. A new exhibit has opened at the South New Zealand Art Gallery featuring memorabilia from Gallipoli. The Anzac display is part of the build-up to 100-year commemorations in 2015 and includes a complete 8th Southland Company NZ uniform. It's hoped it will give the public a better understanding and a taste of what could be on display for the 100th anniversary. The museum will also mark Anzac Day tomorrow with a film night. Military historian Dr. Aaron Fox has loaned the pieces to the museum, saying he wants to encourage public interest ahead of the centenary of Gallipoli.
I've had this material sitting at home for 30 years. Let's give it an airing and let's let the public appreciate what our guys used 100 years ago.
Now this uniform behind you is actually potentially quite significant. Can you explain why?
It is. Well, it's one of the few complete uniforms of a New Zealand soldier at Gallipoli that survived through to the current day. I mean, what you see behind me here is almost 100 years old, and you can imagine very few sets survived the Gallipoli campaign because they got used up at the time. So the webbing set, the uniform, the trousers and everything else, this is what our guys used on the 25th of April 1915. It's amazing. It's a straight connections right back to those days.
Do you think Southlanders are really aware of how much of a contribution that we made during the wars?
No, I don't think so, because it is such a long time ago. And we're trying to remember how many Southlanders left, about 5,000 from the region throughout World War I, where they served, what they did, how many came back. So we're trying to get to grips with it ourselves as a project, and I think extend that knowledge to the rest of Southland and get people to appreciate what it was all about.
Do you think there does need to be a growing awareness around Anzac Day and what it means?
I do think so, yes, and actually an understanding of the campaign itself. So I mean, we commemorate the war dead, but a lot more people served on Gallipoli and came back. So I'd like to see more of an appreciation of why, politically, some 8,000 troops were sent from New Zealand to fight in a place they'd never heard of for a battle that ultimately became a defeat for us. So let's try and understand that in more detail and why we did it. Let's not try and do that again.
Stay with us after the break. Registrations have opened, but the costs of the inaugural Auckland to Bluff yacht race remain unknown. Welcome back. The A to B yacht race is scheduled for next February, but Invercargill City Council is still unsure who will pay for new moorings in Bluff or the costs involved. ICC have committed $100,000 of the $380,000 needed. I spoke to Invercargill City Chief Executive Richard King.
Well, the intent is still to hold it over the Waitangi weekend, or starting from Auckland on Waitangi weekend. We have funding applications in to our funding partners, and also to Environment Southland. That has to go through their annual plan. The big hurdle, of course, has always been the mooring places in Bluff. And representatives from the company that are running the event were down yesterday talking to Southport and engineering companies in Bluff, and they believe they've got a solution to the problem.
Do you think that they'll be looking at a permanent structure or something that might be a floating pontoon?
Well, it could be a bit of both. Obviously, the intent is to make it an annual event to rival Sydney Hobart. So obviously you just don't want to do something temporary.
So who would ultimately end up owning those moorings?
Well, it could be, the other objective, of course, is to have moorings not only for the one yacht race, it's to have for recreational craft. But that may be further down the track. So whether it's Southport who owns them, whether it's a company that runs the event, whether or not it's a city council that offers them to recreational yachties, we don't know yet.
So what sort of cost is involved in creating that infrastructure at the Bluff end?
At the Bluff end, we're looking at, the original estimate was around $180,000.
But it's obviously going to cost a lot more than that to create the kind of moorings that you need to house 30 yachts.
Well, we don't know that yet.
So when are you going to know that?
Well, hopefully really soon, because time's starting to run out.
So as far as the council's contribution to date?
We've committed $100,000 to the event. The local share is $380,000, and we believe it's going to be great in the future for the benefits, the economic benefits it brings.
So where will the other $280,000 come from?
Well, that's where our funding applications are at the moment, so I don't want to prejudice that.
So you also have received money from central government for this?
Well, the government have committed $440,000, but that is also conditional on Southland meeting its share, and that's that $380,000.
The Department of Conservation has confirmed it will go ahead with the first 2 stages of a restructure outlined last month. Restructure changes that are confirmed include setting up new conservation partnership teams and reducing the country's 11 conservancy regions to 6, with Southland and Invercargill conservancies combining. More than 1,000 submissions were received on the proposed restructure. DOC says it's still consulting with staff and final decisions on staffing numbers won't be known until early May. 140 fewer positions have been proposed across the country, and it's unclear how staffing levels will be affected in Southland. Northern Southland residents have given overwhelming support to upgrade Lumsden Community Pool in a recent survey. An upgrade is needed because the annual cost of $23,000 to heat the pool is not sustainable, according to the Lumsden Community Pool Trust. The upgrade could cost up to $160,000, with work including re-roofing, recladding and a new heating system, which could reduce running costs by 75% and extend the pool season. A recent survey showed 80% of residents surveyed support the upgrade. The Trust failed to secure funding through Southland District Council rates and is now working on fundraising. Southland boys are the focus of a training camp for gymnasts in Invercargill this week. 27 boys from Southland and Dunedin are taking part in a 2-day development training program at the Invercargill Gymnastic Club. Head men's coach Ryan Fates says the camp offers a chance to develop skills, working on the fundamentals as well as developing future skills, and is also an opportunity to socialise with other male gymnasts. He says the number of boys taking gymnastics classes has seen strong growth, having almost doubled in the past few years. And that's it from news. Coming up in sport, zero fee Sharks action from the weekend. From the news team, we'll see you back on Friday. Good night.